Alright, we're going to take a look at quadratic formula and special factorization. This is actually a continuation under the factoring tab. Again, if you need more space, you can actually do it. If you don't want to continue this, you can continue on the next page. I'm just going to make mine fit here. So, quadratic formula. Alright, so quadratic formula only works when the highest power is 2, when it's a quadratic equation or function or polynomial or whatever you want to call it. Only works when the highest power is 2. And what is the quadratic formula? It's minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Memorize it, know it backwards and forwards. It really helps when you can't find those two numbers. Now, the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac, will tell you how many solutions the quadratic has. Right, so it'll tell you how many solutions the quadratic has. This is a listening check. Underline discriminant. Underline discriminant. If the discriminant is greater than 0, it has 2 real solutions. If it's equal to 0, it has 1 real solution. And if it's less than 0, it has no real solutions, or really 2 imaginary solutions. In AP Calculus, we're not really going to go into imaginary, so you'll be okay not even knowing less than 0, but just so you know. Alright, so if you take a look at an example, let's say we had 2x squared plus 9x minus 18. The coefficient with the x squared will be your a. So what's the coefficient with x squared? 2. That will be your a. The coefficient with just the x will be b, don't forget the symbol or the sign, and the coefficient at the end with no x will be c. And all you do after that is literally plug in a, b, c into the quadratic formula. So x equals minus b. What's minus b? So it's minus 9 plus or minus b squared, which is 9 squared, which is 81, minus 4 times a, which is 2, c, which is negative 18. All over 2 times a, which is 2, equals, and go ahead and simplify that. So you're going to get negative 9 plus or minus 81, and then I've got a negative times a negative is going to give me a positive, and then 4 times 2 is 8 times 18, and I'm just going to do it over here on the side. Oh, and by the way, you still need to write this down, is 144 all over 2 times 2, which is 4. Go ahead and simplify that some more. So you're going to get negative 9 plus or minus, and then 81 plus 144 is going to give me 225 all over 4. Equals, simplify that more, negative 9 plus or minus square root of 225 is 15, divided by 4, and then actually do it. So negative 9 plus 15, that's 6 divided by 4. This is a listening check. Color in the equal sign before the negative 9. Color in the equal sign before the negative 9. And then if you go the other route, negative 9 minus 15, that's more negatives, so negative 24 over 4 is negative 6. So let's go ahead and simplify the 6 over 4. That's going to be 3 over 2. Alright, so those will be your 2 answers. And to write this in factored form, just write the solution. So you've got x is 3 over 2 is one solution. Get rid of the fraction, so multiply by 2, so 2x equals 3. Then take 3 to the other side, so 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. That will be your factor term, 2x minus 3, because before you put it equal to 0. Same thing with the negative 6, just take it to the other side, and you're basically making it equal to 0, because that's what you would do to go to find what x is by itself. So that's how you use the quadratic formula. We're going to do another example just to make sure that you do have it. So this will be a second example, and we're going to look at 8x minus 3x squared equals 2. This is a listening check, circle number 2. This is a listening check, circle number 2. Alright, so first thing you need to do is actually arrange it in order, x squared, x, and then the number. So just rewrite this, equals 0, perfect. And then find out what a is. It's the coefficient with x squared is a, the coefficient with x is b, and the last one is c. So just the number by itself is c. Then plug it into your equation, negative b plus or minus b, the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Negative b, so negative 8 plus or minus b squared, which is 8 squared, which is 64, minus 4 times a, which is negative 3, times c, which is negative 2, all over 2 times a, which is negative 3. Simplify this, negative 8 plus or minus. This is a listening check, color in negative 8. the square root of 64, and then this is going to be a negative because the negative sign is a negative times negative is a negative. Then 4 times 3 is 12, times 2 is 24, and then the bottom is going to be negative 6. Simplify that more. That's going to give you 40 and negative 6. And now you can't take the square root of 40, but you can simplify it. Okay, so I'm going to break it down completely. 40 breaks down to 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. And if I see a pair, I can take the pair out. So because it's a square root, I'm looking for a pair. If it was cube root, I would be looking for 3. So because you see a pair of 2's, you can take the 2 out. So when you take the 2 out, you're going to get negative 8 plus or minus 2. And then what's left inside? 2 times 5, which is 10. Once you have that, you can simplify it because everything is divisible by 2. So go ahead and divide by 2. 2 goes into 8 4 times, 2 into 2 1 time, and 2 into 6 negative 3 times. And so my final answer, just rewriting it, negative 4 plus or minus radical 10 all over negative 3. And that's pretty much what the quadratic formula is. You just need to memorize the formula itself. Alright, so let's take a look at special factorization. This is just basically the rules, the different rules of factoring to make your life a lot easier. This is a listening check. Color in all the O's in the title, special factorization. Color in all the O's in the title, special factorization. So the first one we're going to take a look at is the difference of squares. I kind of mentioned this one in the previous video. That's when you have x squared minus y squared. In other words, if you can take the square root of the first one, the square root of the second, and it's separated by a negative, then your answer is always going to be the square root of the first one and the square root of the second, and then plus and minus between them. Alright, so let's take a look at an example. If we said x squared minus 9, again, if you can take the square root of the first one, the square root of the last one, and separated by a negative, so it's going to be the square root of the first one, which is x, square root of the second one, which is 3, and then plus or minus between them. That's it. You need to memorize it. Alright, perfect squares. Let's take a look at perfect squares. Again, with these, you could always do it the long way, but you know, it's a lot easier if you recognize it. The perfect square said, if you can take the square root of the first thing, the square root of the last thing, and then you multiply them together, the square roots, and then multiply it by 2, and it gives you the middle one. We're going to correct the negative sign after the x squared to a positive, but then it says, then you're going to have the square root of the first thing, square root of the last thing, and then plus squared. And I'm just going to correct that because if it's minus, it's actually minus, so I'm just going to make it plus here since I wrote plus there. So let me do it the second one so you can see what I mean. So let's say now you have the square root of the first thing, square root of the last thing, and because the minus between them, it's negative. So as long as you multiply those two together, multiply by 2, and you get the middle, and it's whatever the sign is of the middle. Alright, so if we looked at some examples, let's see at x squared plus 16x plus 64. It says if you can take the square root of the first thing, the square root of the second, which is 8, multiply them together, and multiply them by 2 to get the middle, then this is a perfect square. So it's just going to be the square root of the first, square root of the last, and then whatever the sign is with the middle term, which is positive, squared. This is a listening check. Underline this answer. Let's take a look at another example. Let's say you have 2x squared minus 40x plus 200. Alright, always be aware of whether you can factor something out. So I can factor out 2 in this case, and I'll be left with x squared minus 20x plus 100. And then again, if you can take the square root of the first thing, which is x, square root of the second thing, which is 10, multiply them together, so that's 10x, multiply by 2, get negative 20x, then it's the square root of the first thing, square root of the last thing, and then with the subtraction sign squared. And that's pretty much it. Again, it's very, very useful for you to remember these. Let's take a look at the last one, which is the sum of cubes and the difference of cubes. What this one says, if you can take the cube root of the first thing, the cube root of the second thing, and then whether it's plus or minus, it will depend what we do. Then what you do is the first parenthesis is going to be the cube root of the first thing. This is a listening check. Color in sum, which is x, the cube root of the second thing, which is y, and then keep the sign the same, and then use that to find the next one. So you're going to take the first term, x, square it, so that's x squared. Take the second term, square it, that's y squared. Then to get the middle, multiply them together, x, y, and change the sign. So it's a plus, so it becomes a negative. Alright, the same thing for difference of cube, only it's the other way around. So x cubed minus y cubed. Again, take the cube root of the first thing, which is x, the cube root of the second thing, which is y. Keep the sign the same right here. And then use this to find the second one. So what you're going to do is square the first thing, which is x, square the second thing, which is going to make it positive x, y squared. Then multiply x and y together, the first and that term together, change the sign. So it changed from minus to plus. And that's it. So let's take a look at a couple of examples of us doing this, and then we'll move on to the next video. So we've got 8x cubed plus 27y cubed. So again, it says, if you can take the cube root of the first thing, so the cube root of the first thing is going to be 2x, and then the cube root of the second thing, then you can do the sum of squares. Alright, cube root of 27, that's 3 times 3 times 3, which in this is 3. And then y cubed, keep the sign the same. Then use this to do the second thing. So take the first thing and square it, that's going to be 4x squared. Take the last thing and square it, that's going to be 9x squared. Then multiply first and last term together to get 6xy and change the sign to a negative. Let's do one more example with the difference of cubes. I just did a listening check without saying listening check. I was just checking to see if you were listening to what I was saying versus what I was writing. So again, if you can take the cube root of the first thing, the cube root of the second thing, cube root of 64, you're going to get 4, because 4 times 4 is 16, times another 4, that's 64. So 4z. Cube root of 25 is going to be, actually let me change that to 125, because there's no cube root of 25. So I'm going to change that to 125. Cube root of 125 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, times another 5 is 125. Alright, 5w, and then use that to do the second thing. So square the first thing, 16z squared, square the next thing, 25w squared, then multiply the first and the second thing together, that's going to be 20wz, and change the sign from a minus to a plus. Let's practice.